Lippman. He's a White House and Washington reporter for Politico. Great to see you, Daniel. Isn't this just Donald Trump blackmailing Volodymyr Zelenskyy?
Well, I think it's a kind of a punishment to how he felt he was embarrassed in the Oval Office on Friday when Zelenskyy pushed back and said, hey, Vladimir Putin is not interested in peace. We've been invaded for the last 11 years. Remember that initial incursion was in 2014, and Putin has kept going, basically. And so I think what he wants is that mineral deal signed so he can have a win he can show to his supporters, but also an apology and more gratitude from Zelenskyy. So Trump really views these types of foreign leader engagements on a one-to-one basis and a transactional basis. So it's not as much about the American democratic values anymore.
But Donald Trump seems to be siding with Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin is undoubtedly the aggressor here. It was his military that invaded the neighboring country. So far, the American president doesn't seem to have demanded any concessions from Putin. Putin's red lines they haven't been addressed by Donald Trump. In other words, Ukraine should never join NATO. There should be no Western peacekeepers on Ukrainian soil. That Russia won't give up any territory that it's currently occupying.
No, yeah, it's been pretty blank in terms of demands. And while Trump says, he thinks that Putin wants to do a deal right now, we haven't seen any evidence of that Putin would rather have this war go on forever. And if he has to take a pause for a few years and then come back after rearming his military, then he's happy to do that. But it has been very striking. And it used to be a Republican Party which was strongly anti-Soviet Union during the Cold War, that was very critical of Russia's authoritarian turn in the last few years. But Trump definitely has a liking to Putin. He likes how strong he is. He doesn't have courts or Congress to get in his way. And so that kind of appeals to the more authoritarian side of Trump. But I think that's leaving Ukraine in the ditch right now because they're having to claw back favor with this administration.
And you'll have seen those scenes in the Oval Office with Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, almost trying to shrink himself to not even be there to watch what was happening between Vance, Trump and Zelenskyy. And then you've got Keith Kellogg, the special envoy to Russia and Ukraine, reportedly being sidelined by the Oval Office. Is this what Trump has been planning? Is this what we're going to get for the next 4 years? He said he quite fancied being a dictator. He said, OK, it'll only last 24 hours. But are we now seeing the president that Trump really wants to be? The guy who is making all the decisions and taking all the responsibility for changing U.S. policy internally and internationally?
Well, we still have courts that are trying to block him when he goes over the law with some degree of success. So far, he has said he complies with all court rulings, but then they really try to slow walk it. And so a lot of these fights will get to the Supreme Court, but he can't do the clampdown on free speech or protests, free assembly. There's still a Constitution and the Bill of Rights that he can't trample on. And of course, the farther he goes now, then it becomes harder for Republicans to keep control of Congress next year during the midterms, because there's definitely a backlash building to everything he is doing by going so far so fast.
Daniel, do you think it's an exaggeration? There's plenty of analysis saying that actually things are never going to be the same again. Since World War II, we've had this international order, and as far as the US and its European allies are concerned, the trust was so implicit that everybody knew where they stood, and that actually, it lent a certain peacefulness to international diplomacy because of these two huge behemoths on either side of the Atlantic who were always on the same page. Do you think it's an exaggeration to say that things will never be the same again because of Donald Trump?
Well, he really undermined the NATO alliance in his first term, and then Biden really revitalized it and helped stand up to Putin when the war started a few years ago. And so it's definitely possible if there's another Democratic president or more of a traditional Republican president next time around, that they'll have to do similar work to rebuild those alliances. And hope that there's no further aggression from Putin. But also you have to wonder, what message does what Trump is doing to Ukraine today send to China and Taiwan in terms of almost giving a tacit green light. You can go into Taiwan, and I won't stop you.
Daniel, really appreciate the analysis. Thanks for sharing it with us.
Thank you.